Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani and welcome to this YouTube channel on narcissism. It's my hope that the content on this channel will help you make more sense of the difficult relationships in which you find yourself and give you tools, techniques to understand it, navigate it, and hopefully heal and recover from it. So I'm going to take on sort of just a basic concept. Basically, toxic people waste time. So even as I wrote those words on a piece of paper, I thought, oh goodness, that could be a proverb. Toxic people waste time. But it's not a proverb. I like to think of it as sort of a truism. Now, I really want you to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to think about it. I want you to think about how much time you waste on or with difficult, toxic, narcissistic, or other forms of highly demanding, eggshell requiring, constantly victimized people. So how do you spend your time with them? You try and appease them, please them, avoid their rage, cheer them up, fluff them, validate them, admire them, try to avoid saying the wrong thing, manage all of their sensitivities, cut them slack, make excuses, spend hours writing carefully written emails or text messages, sit in meetings, do endless calls, trying to explain things with them so they feel heard. You won't be heard, but they have to be heard. And in the midst of all that is happening in the world, I must say, everyone is really stressed these days, more than I've ever seen. And lots of people opine about what are our greatest sources of stress in the world right now. Loneliness, managing work-life balance, working too much, money, the cost of living, health issues. No, I'm going to argue this, and I'm willing to take the bet that the stressor that is taking the greatest toll on the collective health and mental health of the people in the world is toxic people. I found myself recently talking with someone who is sort of more of like an independent contractor, freelance worker, professional person, and this person is often juggling multiple gigs or jobs or projects. That at the time, the person had about 5 projects they were balancing at the time, and they kind of require equal amounts of attention, and they commented that one of the 5 projects involved a deeply difficult, entitled, grandiose, egocentric person. The person had to be handled and managed all of the time. It required long, circuitous emails just so this person felt heard. And then making sure that they kept telling the egocentric person they were great just so they could keep the project alive. And because this difficult person actually wasn't all that great or wasn't all that smart, everyone was always having to find creative ways of steering their better ideas into a sensible place and not an idiotic place without that person feeling criticized. Because all of this team were this one difficult person's client and paying them for paying this person who's doing the 5 other jobs for their work, they couldn't afford to lose this difficult client. The person I was talking with commented that although I have 5 separate gigs I'm working on right now, I'm putting 80% of my time into this one. Not because the work on this one is harder, but because so much of the effort goes into managing this one person. This difficult person would send multiple long emails a day to the person I was talking with, including weekends, and then would become petulant and tantrumy when they weren't responded to right away. One person on the team actually had to step away from their own child's birthday party to answer this toxic person's emails. But the toxic person was integral to getting the funding, so everyone, including this person I was talking with, had to just keep eggshell walking to get the project done and ultimately to get paid. So 80% of this person's time was going into this one project, and most of it, the work, wasn't even germane to the project. It was managing this difficult person. Toxic people require disproportionate resources. This is often most pronounced in the workplace. I am convinced that these long, meandering, cover-your-ass employee handbooks that people get on the first day of a new job is really nothing more than an assemblage of the various issues that have come up over the years of having to cover every single damn situation raised by difficult narcissistic people who can't follow rules, and thus the employer has to write down the most basic elements of normal human functioning as rules and turn them into rules so that if they need to enforce them, it's in writing. If you have these kinds of toxic, difficult, demanding, high conflict people in the workplace, you will need to document the hell out of everything. And the narcissistic people somehow have a strange part of their psyches that are designed to write long, abusive emails, no matter what the hour. In so many of these workplace situations, the backing and forthing will happen over dozens and dozens of these long emails. Upon receiving one of these ridiculous emails, the healthy person may have a brief response or no response if it's not warranted, because more often than not, these emails are more of a rant than an actual question. The difficult person will actually just go on and on and on. The emails become like a one-sided, increasingly delusional conversation. But these kinds of email or text rants are one more example of the airing of the grievances that are basically Narcissism 101. The emails can be exhausting to the point that for anyone working with that person, as soon as you see the narcissistic person's name in your inbox, you kind of have these gastric paroxysms. You need to run to the toilet again and have severe, intense anxiety. In some ways, this is why difficult people get away with so much in the workplace. They wear people down. And this is why we often see things like financial or legal settlements or even capitulation. And the way labor law is written, it's written in a way that it's all but impossible to fire a narcissistic person. As part of the workplace consulting work I have done, I am struck by how challenging it can be to let someone go on the basis of their toxic workplace behavior, and how at some point many employers, knowing that they can't afford the lawsuit they'd have to get if they tried to fire the person, they'll just try to isolate the difficult team member and give them simple tasks that they can do alone to at least protect the rest of the team from the narcissistic person. All of this ends up becoming a major waste of time and resource and can be demoralizing for the rest of a team. The other way that toxic people waste our time is that we think about them over and over again, day and night, night and day. Rumination is a classical part of narcissistic abuse, and people will ruminate about the difficult conversation they just had, or the difficult emails they got that day, or the difficult situation. The self-gaslighting means that people will wonder, did I actually say or do the things they accuse me of? Like, I didn't think I did. Now, usually the answer is no, but the narcissistic person is so committed to their distorted version of reality that their conviction can actually destabilize everyone else's instincts. People will spend time thinking about this toxic situation, poring over the emails and texts, trying to compose their own lengthy responses to the narcissistic person's verbal diarrhea emails. Please, if you feel the need to sit down and write it, please don't send it, because it's just going to release even more torrents of emails you're not going to be able to keep up. You will spend time talking to people about it, and you will find yourself distracted by it. It is all a major time waster, and people will find themselves getting angrier and angrier, not just about the situation with the toxic person, but about all the time that they're wasting. This wasted time and distraction can actually result in problems at work, problems in your relationship, disrupted sleep, and on top of the toxic situation, you are now also potentially facing the consequence of not getting all the things you need to get done, and taking hits for that because you're so distracted thinking about the toxic situation. When you think about where workplaces will waste the most time, inevitably, it's in dealing with the difficult employee. The HR people and managers who have to keep sitting and having meetings about the situation. the creation of remediation plans for this difficult person, having more meetings, and then going to even more meetings about the employee's grievance or lawsuit, and then lose money when they put the person, the narcissistic person or difficult person, on leave with pay, and then they may still have to pay a settlement. There is the lost time in this. There's the lost time spent thinking about it and talking about it and the sleepless nights. And I have to be honest with you, in a place like California, labor law actually significantly favors the toxic, narcissistic types of people. The labor laws may have actually come out of a place of good intention to provide employee protections, but sadly have actually resulted in very calculating people with these kinds of high conflict, toxic styles, recognizing that once they're hired, they can get away with a lot because the employment policies favor them. Many employers have lost thousands of dollars or even more trying to get rid of or manage these entitled, high conflict, manipulative employees. Let's face it, in a large corporation, that's a headache, but in a small to medium-sized business, it can actually result in the business taking a substantial hit, if not completely going under. In your personal life, you spent endless hours ruminating, thinking, talking, therapying, and having sleepless nights. You may figure out how to firewall or gray rock or not engage and all the rest of it, as well as try to protect children or other stakeholders from the misery. All of this expends psychological energy, lots of psychological energy. Many people also feel that not only are they wasting real time on the inefficiency of the narcissistic relationship, but they're also wasting what I call lifetime. Years being spent in a miserable relationship or working with a miserable person or wondering if it is better to not be in it or being afraid to consider an alternate path than whatever kind of relationship they are in. That constantly thinking about it is one more time drag. Too often, when I ask people what's good and what's not good in their lives, over half the time, the not good thing is a difficult person or people in their lives. Otherwise, most other things, they're going pretty well for us. The stuff that keeps us up at night is the rumination about the toxic people and situations. I really do believe it may be the single greatest stressor of our time. And the fact is, you can never get that time back. So for reasons that will never be fully clear to me, the enabling nature of our society is such that the structures actually embolden, empower, and enable the most toxic people in a system. They can harass and harangue and abuse and demand and send horrible emails with abandon. But everyone else, walking on eggshells, has to manage this, wait for the processes to work themselves through. And before you know it, it's many times that difficult narcissistic person who's walking off with the settlement while everyone else is still in there punching a clock. And you know what, though? Some people will say, you know what, I'm fine with punching the clock. If they're gone, this has just became a much easier job. But unfortunately, in some of these situations, if the difficult people don't leave the situation, it's really then having to do the calculation. Is this taking, especially in a workplace, such a toll on me? Should I stay or should I go? It's a very personal choice. But at the end of the day, the bottom line and the upthrust of this video is toxic people waste a lot of time. And like I said, it's time that you can't get back. Thanks again.